The following is a conversation I had with Veronika Mark, who is a very successful language learner. She speaks amazing English. We talk about learning English up to a very high level. We also talk about learning languages in general. And towards the end of the interview, we talk about succeeding on YouTube and some advice that she has. So this is about language learning for the most part, and there's a little bit of YouTube advice also. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation. I get the feeling that even as I'm talking to you right now, your accent and your native likeness has improved a lot, even like when I compare to like videos from a few years ago. So
Oh,
what's the deal?
absolutely.
What's the secret?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite activities to just like watch my YouTube videos from 2 years ago, even 1 year ago. I turned on a YouTube video. I'm like, what? Like I sounded like that, and like I was creating sentences in this way. Very interesting. Because I feel like oftentimes as language learners, we feel like we're not improving. Because sometimes, like right now, I'm like, yeah, like I'm not actively learning English anymore. So sometimes I might feel like I'm probably not improving. Like I do use English at my work, but like I think making YouTube videos really helps me see the progress. So that's why I always say on my YouTube channel that, recording short videos of yourself helps so much because this way you can see your progress. And this way you're not going to be too harsh on yourself because a lot of language learners are impatient, very harsh on themselves. We think that, we're learning this language for 1 month, we already have to be advanced and stuff like that. And so just recording little videos of yourself, you don't have to post them anywhere if you don't want to. I do because it's my job. But this allows me to see the progress, and it actually makes me very motivated and very proud of myself.
Yeah. Well, you've obviously achieved a lot in the past few years. I think over 1 million subscribers on your main channel at the time of recording. So it's been very beneficial for your English and also in terms of just, yeah, YouTube growth. Can you talk a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about like what it was like just learning English? I believe I listened to some other interviews of yours where you talked about how you were pretty somewhat of a good student in school in terms of like English at least. And so can you go back and sort of talk about this entire journey?
Okay. Yeah. So I started learning English when I was like a very small kid. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, but originally I didn't like English much. But I was a good student, I did my homework. But the point where I got very interested in English myself, not because my parents told me that I had to do my homework, I had to learn English, was probably when I turned 14. Because one day I was on YouTube, I was watching some like YouTube videos in Russian. I always loved YouTube, like ever since I could remember. And yeah, I decided to, I don't know why I started like thinking about it. I was like, I like watching all these videos in Russian. Let me see if I can find like similar videos in English, like lifestyle YouTubers, travel YouTubers. And found a lot, obviously. And I was so surprised. I was like, wait a second, like I can so easily watch stuff in English now and it's completely free. And I was just in love. Like from that moment, I was watching a lot of YouTubers. They're actually still American YouTubers that I'm watching up until this day. And I started watching them when I was like 14, 15, which is crazy. It feels kind of crazy. But yeah, and that's how I got very interested in learning English. Like the interest was not something that my parents told me to do, right? Like it wasn't, I wanted to learn English, not because my parents told me to learn English. Yeah, and then I realized that I needed to take exams and that English was one of the subjects that I had to take. So I started being even more serious, like preparing for exams because I really wanted to go to a good university in Russia. Because I'm not originally from Moscow, the capital city. I'm from a town, a city, probably 5 hours away from Moscow by car. So I really wanted to like be this like, city girl and like live in a big city, live my dream life in a big city. And I knew that for that I had to study. I had to study. I had to pass my exams. I had to get a good score. Yeah, that's how I went to university. And in university, I decided to learn Chinese because I think I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I was 17. I was 17 years old. And I think at that point, a lot of people, it's very hard for teenagers. I was still a teenager, like to make a decision and be like, yeah, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, yeah, it was very hard for me. And I was like, I guess I like languages. So I decided to choose Chinese. And I spent the next 5 years in college learning Chinese, practicing English. I was still like in love with English, improving my English very actively. And yeah, then at one point I realized that I actually wanted to start my YouTube channel because I like YouTube so much, and that I actually didn't want to be a Chinese interpreter or translator. I didn't want to teach Chinese. Like, I didn't actually want to, make Chinese my career. Yeah, it's fun sometimes to speak Chinese and sometimes to practice Chinese, to watch some videos in Chinese on my own. But to make it my career, I realized that I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you studied Chinese for 5 years, and I also have some experience, not with Chinese, but learning Japanese. And so we both know that between like learning English or any kind of European language and learning an Asian language, especially Chinese or Japanese, it's like a totally different game. Like, you're talking about two different things, not necessarily in terms of like methods, but in terms of the time necessary to really become really good. So, how good
Mm-hmm.
would you say that you are in Chinese? Is this still a language that you use sometimes?
Mm-hmm. Not anymore. Not much, really. I was very good when I graduated from college. Probably I was B2, like a very strong B2, sometimes C1, depending on the topics. And it was in 2022. So I graduated from college 2 years ago. And so ever since then, I kind of stopped using Chinese. So probably right now I am A1. Like, that's what I tell everyone. And that's a very good, lesson for everyone listening. Like, if you don't use the language, you lose it. It's absolutely true. And at the same time, it is also true that you can pick it up faster. Like, if you already studied this language in the past, especially to a pretty good level, of course, if like right now I dedicate like an hour to Chinese every single day, I know that in a month, I'm gonna have a very good level again. But it's just, when I graduated from college, my priority became Spanish, because I moved to Mexico and I spoke zero Spanish. So I had to I had to acquire Spanish extremely fast. So I couldn't just like, not waste time, but I couldn't dedicate even a little bit of time to Chinese, because at that time I was feeling like even like an hour of Chinese is like taking this hour from me from practicing Spanish, because I could have spent this hour practicing more Spanish. Because it was like, so important for me. Like, I would go outside and no one would understand me and I wouldn't understand anyone else. And I was like, no, I need to like change something about it. And now obviously it's completely different. I feel confident when I speak Spanish. I understand a lot of things. Um, I would say right now I'm probably like, again, B1, maybe in some cases even B2 in Spanish. When I watch videos on YouTube, like, I understand most of the things. Sometimes I think it just all comes down to vocabulary. When I have to talk about a specific topic in Spanish, I just feel like maybe I don't know all the words. But like on the weekend, I went rock climbing for the first time, like bouldering, and I really liked it. And I understood like 90% of what the instructor was telling me. So I was like,
Nice.
that's pretty good. Yeah, I felt like very confident. So, just like in terms of vocabulary, sometimes I just need to learn more words.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this is the biggest obstacle for most language learners. It feels like the grammar sort of, yeah, you can learn it and there's a limited amount of grammar, but then
for vocabulary is just like this mountain of like thousands of words that you need to learn. So is there any other language that maybe you want to learn in the future, or if you have some time?
Maybe Korean. I've been thinking recently of maybe picking up Korean. I actually like had my first study session last week. It was my first ever study session. Like I learned the pronunciation, the alphabet. It was fun. It kind of reminded me of like when I was learning Chinese because kind of like characters, different combinations of things, and it was like, oh yeah, it's kind of fun. But at the same time, I feel like right now for me, language learning is more like if I feel like doing it,
Yeah,
especially when it comes to like additional languages that I don't necessarily need, like crucially, need in my life. Because obviously for me, English is very important. So improving my English constantly is a priority for me. Improving my Spanish constantly is a priority for me. And so if sometimes I just feel, sick and tired of practicing Spanish and English, I can be just like, okay, whatever, I'm so tired. Let me just like, watch a video in Korean. But it's like very slow, just for me, no tests, no, just for fun.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Korean is pretty trendy nowadays, I guess, with all the yeah dramas and music. I thought about learning Korean too. Like when I started learning Japanese, it was like, okay, I just want to learn a language, but which one should I choose? And then for some reason, I just ended up choosing Japanese. But um, I'm always a little bit careful nowadays because I'm sure you have this experience of like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to learn a new language, my dream language or whatever. And then you realize like, if you really want to get good at it, it's like such a huge time investment and just
Mm-hmm.
emotional energy too. Because I'm sure you have this experience where if you like for your English, for example, there's no way that you can just like study for even hundreds of hours and become good. There's like thousands of hours that you have to spend just listening and reading stuff. And so yeah, it's very very time consuming. But so for
Mm-hmm.
Korean, my understanding is that it's an Asian language, but it's pretty different from like Chinese, for example. So you would not have any advantage. Like because you learn Chinese doesn't mean that you're going to have a huge advantage with Korean, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe in some ways it is very different, but I don't know. I feel like looking at a word in terms of, oh, it's like this language is not like words per se in terms of like A, B, C, D, like the alphabet is different. It's not something that I'm used to, right? The way the language is written. That's what I mean. And so I think I'm kind of used to looking at a language at this way because of Chinese. Obviously, in Chinese, it's a little bit different. In Korean, again, it's easier in terms of like reading words. In Chinese, it was way harder, I think. But I think that was hard. That's something that was hard for me at the very beginning with Chinese, like looking at a word and then not seeing like exactly how I had to pronounce it. Because
Yeah.
sometimes, you pronounce it this way, sometimes it's like that way, and you're like, oh my God. And also like all the tones and stuff like that. Yeah, but what you just mentioned about learning a language being a very big time investment, it is absolutely true. And I think also recently I've been thinking about my energy investment also because when I work, I sit in front of my computer, or like I record videos. Again, like I sit, it's all pretty sedentary. So when I think about what I want to do to just like get my energy back or have some fun, usually I opt for something active. And that's why on the weekend, I like do something active, try new sports, go to the gym and stuff like that. Because if I work all day and then I'm like, what should I do for fun? And then I think, oh yeah, let's sit for 2 more hours in front of my computer and learn Korean. It doesn't sound fun for me at all. I'm like, I just can't. Like, I just want to go out there, do something active. And I know it's just like me. I work this way. I know there are a lot of people out there who love learning languages, and they, let's say they have sanitary jobs as well, and they can sit and work, and then after work they learn languages, and then they like learn more and more and more. For me, if I don't move, yeah, it's just I'm not going to feel good at all. So that's why, especially I think recently, I've been experimenting more with trying like new active hobbies, not so much, investing my time into more languages.
Oh, okay. So what, like sports?
Exactly, sports, different sports like tennis, Pilates, gym, yoga, rock climbing, running, a lot of different things.
Yeah, yeah. And I definitely think that in some perhaps indirect way, it's also very beneficial for just, yeah, for your work and language learning. When you're doing sports, you just go out there and get some fresh air. You're just so much more clear and focused.
Mm-hmm.
But so what I wanted to ask you was actually it's a kind of a thought experiment that I did yesterday with Lamont from Days and Words. So let's imagine that from, let's say, next week. Next week, I'm giving you just 1 year. You have 1 year full time. You don't have, like, don't worry about the YouTube channel. Don't worry about anything else. Full time, you're going to learn a new language. And let's say it's going to be Korean. So, yeah, pretty hard, but maybe not as hard as Chinese because the writing system is easier. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a big challenge, right? And so at the end of the year, you have to reach about a C1 level. So, very, very ambitious, right? But you're doing it full time. So, what is going to be, oh, and by the way, if you don't reach a C1 level, like I'm going to come and just bury you alive or do something where you're going to die. So there's no choice. So what is going to be the daily sort of daily routine like, and what is the program going to be during the 12 months?
Well, I think for me, obviously, it's going to be practicing and learning the language every single day. It's going to be pretty much what I'm doing right now, but more often and more intense. I'm definitely going to go to South Korea too to travel, maybe go to like a language program just to talk to native speakers and be there because it really motivates me to learn the language when I travel and when I get to talk to native speakers. So I'm definitely going to have classes with a native speaking teacher. I'm going to practice by myself. I mean, it's going to be like my full-time job. Like what you think about a full-time job working Monday to Friday or however you want to work. For me, probably it's going to be like working on my Korean from Monday to Friday intensively and then taking the weekends off just because I still want to live my life and do other things like sports. Let's say obviously, as I said, travel to South Korea. Yeah, I think for me, the way I approach like doing a language program, for example, in South Korea, let's say, is having this community because I know that I can learn a lot of things on my own. Like, it's not like I'm going to go there and be like, okay, they're going to like make me advanced, right? Like, it's all their responsibility. I paid for this program. No, I think for me, this program is more so the environment, the people, the motivation, the teachers. And so basically having more tools, more resources. Yeah, so pretty much this way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people would do the same thing too. But what about the part like in terms of learning grammar, in terms of using textbooks? What would you use, if any at all?
I would just use one like grammar textbook. Yeah, just like start with one and then like go through all the rules while I'm, learning vocabulary, watching YouTube videos on the topics that I like, speaking Korean in class, recording like little YouTube videos. Well, not YouTube videos, but just like videos for me, little videos on my phone to watch later and to track my progress. Yeah, pretty much it. Just like going with the flow. Like I know it's gonna happen one day if I dedicate a lot of hours each day. I don't need to stress about the fact that, okay, today I have to memorize this one rule. If I didn't,
Right.
no, there's this phrase, this concept of cognitive load. Like sometimes your brain is just not capable of truly understanding something yet. Like you need to learn more things about this topic, or maybe like you're a little bit too overwhelmed. Like if you're learning a new language very intensively, yeah, it's a very big cognitive load. And one day you're going to feel like you're not improving, you're tired, you're exhausted. So you need to take a break. Like taking breaks is necessary. And again, if I didn't have to work and all I could do is learn Korean, I would definitely become advanced in a year. I think I would become advanced even sooner than that.
Yeah. And how big of a role do you think just learning grammar, like as opposed to, say, just listening and reading, how big is just learning grammar and going through the textbooks?
I think for me, grammar is important because it helps me combine thoughts together, combine words together in a correct way so that people understand me and I understand other people. But I think what really helps me is like when I'm using a specific resource, let's say I'm watching a YouTube video on a topic that I'm passionate about, and then I see that this YouTuber is using this like word or grammar structure, and I can kind of understand that it's probably connected to grammar. Like this person is using it over and over and over again, and I'm not familiar with it. That's how I learn grammar. I'm going to be like, okay, it's time. Like I've seen it 100 times by now. So I think I need to like do a deep dive and learn more things about it. And then I do a deep dive, I learn more things about it, like in terms of the rules, how to use it. I try to create sentences about my life. I add everything to Anki. And yeah, and then from that moment, I'm like, yeah, I understand what this person is saying, what this grammar rule is about. And then I move on to the next one. And I'm like, okay, now this person is using like this other grammar rule a lot. Because the problem is, I think oftentimes, like in schools, what happens is the teachers tell you that, you know, like your level is A1. So according to A1, you have to know all these grammar rules. But like real language doesn't work this way. In real language, people are going to have a mixture of a lot of different grammar rules. They're going to mix C2 grammar with A1 grammar, you know, like if we use these like levels. So that's why, especially if you have this luxury of doing whatever you want, and for example, that's how I was learning Spanish. I could, you know, understand this like grammar rule that was a little bit more advanced, but I still struggle with a grammar rule that was a little bit simpler. Just because I heard native speakers on the internet or all around me use this grammar rule. And I was like, guys, you use it so much, but maybe like, let's say it's B2 grammar rule. In English, people use, for example, I would, conditionals and stuff like that all the time. But, you know, a lot of language learners think, oh no, it's advanced. It's too hard. I'm not ready for it. But like, if you talk to a native speaker, they're probably going to use it. Like, there's a very high chance they're going to use conditionals. So that's important, I think.
Yeah, sure. I mean, even 3-year-olds probably, I mean, they probably say would. I don't know. I haven't experienced that, but I believe that you used to learn French at some point, and now you're learning Spanish. Probably, I would say, you know, I took Spanish in school for 5 years. Unfortunately, I was not terribly motivated. Let's put it this way. And so, even, you know, me being a French speaker, I learned Spanish, which is like almost not a different language. It's almost just like a dialect. It's pretty close. I just got nowhere. But I thought that the most difficult part for me was the conjugation. I mean, you know, in English, it's just like pretty much the same all the time. Like I do, you do. Yet there's maybe just like he does. But like Spanish is just pretty annoying. How do you deal with this? Is that something that you find difficult?
Yes, absolutely. I think conjugations are difficult for me too, but I know they're difficult for everyone. So for most people, let's say, not for everyone, but I don't want to let it stop me. Like if I'm talking to a person and I'm not sure how to conjugate a verb, I'm going to ask them, or I'm going to conjugate it incorrectly, and then ask them, "Oh, did I say it right?" Or like, "Can you help me please?" Because I think a lot of people, what happens, they freeze and they're like, I don't know how to conjugate this verb perfectly or like correctly, so I'm not going to say anything. No, I say everything because I know they're going to understand me. And sometimes I make grammar mistakes. But for me, the goal is to communicate with this person. And I think also I am very, when I talk to people, especially native speakers, I try to notice everything they say. Because like even I remember a few days ago I was talking to, like when I went rock climbing, I was talking to the instructor and I asked him if I could climb like this wall, this path one more time. And I said something like una vez más, like one more time, kinda. And he's like, oh yeah, you can try otra vez, like and
Oh,
like another basically time. And I was like, oh yeah, like I know I can say it this way too. So like in my brain, my brain registers all of that, and I'm like, okay, he's a native speaker. He used it this way. So like a lot of native speakers, they repeat everything after you. So especially when they think you said something like a little bit incorrectly, or maybe it doesn't sound as natural to them, right? And I pick up on all of those things and I write them down and I memorize them. And it happens very quickly because I'm already in the situation. So I'm like, okay, like I understand it now. Thank you.
yeah. I think I don't have any data on this, but my personal experience is that very successful language learners like you, that's one of the features. Like they notice things that maybe other people who are
Mm-hmm.
not so motivated, they would just they listen to it and they're like, okay, they understand and that's it. But for us, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh wow, he said it this way, and this is very interesting because I would not have said it this way. So, yeah.
Exactly. And then like digging even deeper, like, oh, why did you say it this way? Like again, I remember a few weeks ago I had a class with my Spanish teacher and I wanted to say something like, oh, this comment made me smile. And I know how to say made me laugh, so I use the same logic. But when you say in Spanish make me smile, you use a different verb. And I didn't know about that. So obviously my teacher understood me because I used the same logic. And he was like, you know what? I understand you. And like, it's funny how language works. But like for me as a native speaker, it just doesn't sound correct. And so, like, here's the correct way. And so I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. Like, I get it. And sometimes, like, there's no explanation. I think a lot of people also get very upset when they don't get the explanation. Like, why is this way? It is just the way it is. Like, that's language. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, with make me smile or made me laugh. In English, it's the exact same verb, make. In Spanish, somehow it's two different verbs, but it's fine. Okay, I memorized it.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you have a Spanish teacher. Is that like an in-person type of arrangement or online?
Online. I think right now most people probably do it online. I mean, you can go in person too if it's convenient, but I think online is more convenient.
Yeah. And so, how big of a role do you think this has? Like, I know that people, and including myself, we just go on italki, Preply, or stuff like that. How good of a, because you're going to pay some money, it's not super expensive, but is it good to have a teacher? Is it really an effective use of your time?
For me, it's effective in terms of picking up on all of my mistakes. That's the role of my teacher. I tell him, like, just let's just talk, that's my goal, like to practice conversation. If I have a specific question, we talk about it. And he just corrects me like all the time. And for me, that's the role of a teacher, like giving you good quality feedback because I cannot expect a native speaker, for example, my rock climbing instructor, let's use this since I started talking about it. I cannot expect him to teach me Spanish because he's not my Spanish teacher. And that's something that I think a lot of language learners have to realize too. Like just a native speaker, a random native speaker you meet on the street, they're not going to teach you the language because they're not your teacher. If they are willingly correcting your mistakes or helping you, it's a bonus, like something additional. But the same thing, for example, I have a lot of friends who are like dating people from different cultures, and some of them, and me included in the past, sometimes people get upset like when their partner doesn't help them learn the language, doesn't correct them. And now I understand that it's not their role. Like their role is to be your partner. Like you're in a romantic relationship with this person. They're not your teacher. If they want to correct you or give you feedback, it's a little bonus, but it's not necessary. It's not like a part of a successful relationship. If you want to learn the language, it's your responsibility. And if you want to get good quality feedback, you go and get a teacher. So yeah, I think for me, it's been very helpful in terms of receiving good feedback and just direction. Because sometimes my teacher would tell me, okay, Veronica, like, this is good, but I think you could work a little bit more on this grammar rule. Because when we talk about this topic, you need more time or you make more mistakes when it comes to conjugating verbs in this specific grammar rule. So I say thank you, and then I go and study on my own. And then I come back and we practice more. And I'm like, what do you think now? So
Yeah, exactly. Because what you said about like feedback is just when you're talking to people or your partner, it's just like, even I've been in this situation where it's like, that, well, the person wants to be corrected, but at the same time, it like interrupts the flow of the conversation. It's just kind of annoying. And yeah, it's just better to have a teacher who's like paid for just giving you feedback
exactly.
for an hour, and it's a lot better. So on a different topic, so I think I have a lot of viewers who ask me, and you probably have that same question too, specifically for English, but also for other languages. It's like people understand the language, like they can understand English or whatever other language, but they really struggle to speak it. It's like they can understand fairly well, but why is it that I can't speak? So is that an issue that you had in the past, and how would you go about solving it?
Well, I think it's very common, and there are different reasons why. First of all, I think for most people, it's just naturally more difficult to produce the language than to understand the language. So, first of all, like that's the first thing. Like it's completely natural and it's completely normal. Second, we go into like psychological reasons. Some people are more introverted, some people are more extroverted, some people are afraid to make mistakes, that's why they don't want to speak. Some people, they always want to be perfect, that's why they don't want to speak, because you can't be perfect when you speak a foreign language. You are going to make mistakes. Yeah, so obviously it happens to me all the time. Yeah, sometimes I start speaking Spanish and I make a mistake and I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't make this mistake. But then I stop myself and I'm like, it's fine. Like, it's not the end of the world. You made a mistake. Even though, like, obviously, I think that's the most frustrating part, when you make a mistake and, like, it's a mistake. And, like, 2 seconds later, you're like, oh my God, like, such a, like, stupid mistake. How could I do it? And obviously, like, it's all psychological, like, negative self-talk. So I think just working on, like, developing more self-love and self-compassion towards yourself, those things are very important, because they're going to like benefit your life in general. Because if you're not allowing yourself to make mistakes when you speak a foreign language, you're probably not allowing yourself to make mistakes in life in general. And so you have to go deeper and realize why are you not letting yourself not be perfect? What's going to happen if you make a mistake? Why you're afraid of, this and that. So I think it's very deep for sure.
Yeah, sure. I've also thought about that in the past, definitely, of just like, well, you can't speak, okay, but you can't speak because you're not allowing yourself to speak and make mistake and just incrementally just get better. So yeah, that's been my experience too. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are people who can speak, at least, somewhat. They can have conversations, but they really struggle with, so it's one of two things, right? It's just group conversations with native speakers, like multiple native speakers, you're in a group conversation, maybe there's some background noise. I would say this is like the worst case scenario probably for a lot of people. And secondly, something that you have more control over, but that I think a lot of people struggle with, is just watching movies and like no subtitles, not in your native language, not in the target language. How would you say people can like? How could they improve their listening comprehension in these, tough situations?
Well, I would say turn on subtitles. Like I don't see a problem here if you are not understanding something when you're watching a movie, just turn on subtitles and, read. It helps children a lot, like native speaking children and even adults in terms of their comprehension. It helps you be more focused too, because sometimes people have this problem of I'm watching a movie and then 5 minutes later I realize that I have no idea what just happened because I was thinking about something else in my head. So when you have this like visual representation of something like text you can read, it helps you stay in the moment more because it's like another anchor for you. Yeah, I think it's, I don't know. I never thought it was like making me a worse student if I use subtitles. I think using subtitles in your target language, obviously not in your native language, don't use subtitles in your native language, only in the language of like what you're watching right now. If you're watching something in English, use subtitles in English. If you're watching something in Spanish, use subtitles in Spanish. Um, yeah, so sometimes, different people have different accents, obviously background noise. So it's totally fine to, ask them to say something again, or if you're watching a movie, to pause it and then read the subtitles one more time to make sure that you can understand everything. Sometimes, for example, what I experience here in Mexico City is people use slang that I don't understand. So sometimes I pause the person I'm talking to and I'm like, what does it mean? What does this word mean? And sometimes because people know I'm not a native speaker, they even pause and they ask me, oh, actually, do you know this word? So it happens all the time too. Like when a native speaker used a slang word, they think I don't know, they might pause and ask me. Or if I can see that they're not stopping, they're talking and talking and talking, I can pause them and ask them to, speak a little bit more slowly and explain this word to me. But yeah, it's normal. Obviously, native speakers talk extremely fast in every single language. Like all of us, when I speak Russian, I speak extremely fast because it's my native language. And sometimes, when a Russian learner comes up to me and they want to talk to me in Russian, probably for them, I speak extremely fast. But for me, no, I don't think I speak fast. So,
Yeah, just on the topic of speaking fast, I feel like, yeah, sometimes we have this illusion that people speaking a language that we're trying to learn, they speak fast when actually it's just that we don't really understand very well. But in the case of like Spanish, I really feel like, Spanish speaking people, they actually speak pretty fast. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But on the topic of speaking, still, I think a lot of people, like in terms of just rhythm, a lot of people, they can speak English or whatever target language they want to learn, but it's very slow. I don't think necessarily that the pace at which you speak is a problem, but it's more in terms of if you're looking for words, pausing and it's not very fluent. How would you say, because obviously you speak English at a level where you're not looking for words, it's pretty fluent, it's pretty proficient. What type of training do you have to do to reach that kind of fluency?
I think just practicing the language more, surrounding yourself with this language more. That's very important. Like, I think these are, I mean, it sounds very basic, probably something that you have heard many times before, but it's true. Like, if you don't surround yourself with a language, you're not gonna magically start sounding more fluent and speaking faster. So I think in English, definitely, like at one point, I just made sure my life was happening as much in English as I could. But basically what I was doing is I was surrounding myself with English all the time. So that's something that I'm trying to do right now with Spanish, but sometimes I'm like, I just want to watch something in English. So that's why for me, what's been very helpful is finding YouTubers who make content in Spanish that I truly enjoy, because this way I don't think about it as, oh, I'm learning Spanish right now. And
Yeah.
like when I'm cooking something, for example, I just open YouTube and I see one of my favorite YouTubers posted a new YouTube video and I'm excited, and it just happens to be in Spanish conveniently. And so I think doing more of those things, maybe like can be a movie or a book that you're very excited to read. Let's say it's in a foreign language, but you just know you're so passionate about the story, the book, maybe the author. And this is something that's going to motivate you to click on this video or open this book, not because, it's my time to study session time. Sometimes it's just not motivating enough. Sometimes we just want to, watch a funny video. And if this funny video is in Spanish, then I'm learning Spanish at the same time, which is great.
Yeah, yeah. I get the feeling that we're pretty similar in the sense that I guess on YouTube you have to just make videos and talk about specific sort of techniques and methods for learning languages, but a lot of it just comes down to, well, you just have to listen and read a lot, get a lot of input, and just, live your life with English content or whatever language you're trying to learn. So no secret here. Now, last question about for language learning, and then I want to talk a little bit about YouTube, is a lot of people, including myself, actually, I found that for Japanese specifically, there is a set of expressions, topics that I know pretty well, so I can just, speak about it naturally. But for a lot of things, it's like I'm actually translating in my head, like from English or from French into Japanese. And I realized this, but then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, how else am I going to just express this idea, right? So how can I just stop translating in my head and start just thinking and speaking in Japanese or another language?
When I think that I am starting to translate a lot in my head, yes, usually, as you said, it happens with like specific topics because you lack vocabulary. All I do is, maybe find like a YouTube video or two. Well, probably not two, but like a lot of YouTube videos, like 5 or 10 YouTube videos on the specific topic. Something that happened to me recently too in Spanish. I realized that I lacked vocabulary when I wanted to talk about my hair. So, like a lot of words connected to hair and hair treatments. I just started watching a bunch of YouTube videos and, memorizing like set expressions and repeating everything after the YouTubers. And yeah, that's how. And now I'm like, if I want to say that, my hair is, I don't know, like something, 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 like it just comes a lot more natural to me just because I have practiced a lot. So I have gone through a lot of input and output because I practiced the topic with my teacher too. Like we did a few role plays as if he's my hairdresser and I'm trying to explain what I want to do, like a haircut or something like that. So it can be about any topic. If you feel like you're lacking vocabulary when it comes to the environment, for example, something more complex, you can watch a lot of videos in your target language connected to this specific topic, like recycling, let's say, or like the rule of 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. So they make those videos in like all the different languages. So I'm sure I can watch it in Spanish, in Korean, in English, and just see like what structures native speakers use and how they create sentences and just repeat everything. Like imagine you're a little kid and you're just repeating everything. So yeah, I think that's something that's been very beneficial for me.
Great. Actually, I have one last question on language learning because I'm just wondering, like, I don't know a lot of Russian speaking people. Well, actually, I don't know any, but how common is it for Russians or just Russian speaking people in general to be as proficient in English as you? I would assume it's not very common, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's connected to like a specific country. I think it's just, it all comes down to like a person. Because right now, you can pretty much learn a language without investing any money if you wanted to. So it's not a question of is it common in Russia? I think it's like in Russia, people, students, high school kids experience a lot of similar problems in terms of how we learn languages. So I think it really depends on a person. Because, like, if you know that you need this language and you know you want to be very good at it, you're probably going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Still, yeah, I feel like for no matter what kind of native language you speak, it's pretty rare to find people speaking at this level of proficiency. So,
Mm-hmm.
now I want to talk a little bit about YouTube, just in terms of your YouTube channel, and if you have any tips for people starting YouTube channels. I know that in my audience there are actually a few people who are either just starting out or they have sort of a medium-sized YouTube channel. So the first
Mm-hmm.
question is very much self-interested. So at the time of recording, I have about, I would say, 30,000 subscribers or so. So it's at the point where it's becoming, sort of respectable, I guess. When I show it to my friends, they're like, "Whoa, you're kind of a YouTuber, I guess." But it's like not so impressive that they're like, "Whoa, you're famous." And this is not really something I care about necessarily, being famous, but I guess my question is, when did you realize that, hey, this can actually be a full-time thing? Like, I can do this like full-time, and what helped you make that sort of transition?
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting the words you just used to describe your YouTube channel because I think maybe deep down it is important for you to look impressive or have an impressive YouTube channel. So that's why you used a lot of those words. Because I remember when I was started my YouTube channel, I didn't care what other people thought. Like my high school friends, my college friends, like if they looked at my channel back then and be like, oh my God, I can't believe she's an influencer, I could not care less. Like it's my life. And for me, I was impressive. I was impressive because I decided to do it. It was difficult. Yeah, I remember probably when I was, I think on YouTube, probably I had over like 300,000 subscribers. And my like college friend reached out to me and he was like, wow, I can't believe you're an influencer now. Like, like not in a good way. Like he was not, like
Right.
very happy for me. And I was like, dude, like I never talked to you when I was in college and I don't want to talk to you now, especially now that you're being so rude to me. So I think it's for me when I was starting a YouTube channel, I always knew that I really wanted to make it my job. And when a person just becomes a doctor, for example, they're not going to be like, yeah, like I just graduated. Sorry, I'm not that impressive. I don't have a lot of experience being a doctor. It's not, no, it doesn't work like that. I mean, they know they have all this knowledge, they have all this potential, and they love the work. They love YouTube, they love content creation. And yeah, so I don't know, for me, and that's also why right now I try to not use the word like my small channel or my smaller channel when I talk, because I have two YouTube channels and for me both of them are equally great and amazing. And I don't feel like when I'm like showing people who I am, for example, like I need to only show my biggest YouTube channel, the biggest numbers. No, sometimes I even like only show my like the channel of Veronika Mark, where I have like 40,000 subscribers, I think. Maybe because we talked about like this specific topic, and it was like, oh yeah, like maybe on my YouTube channel I talk about this too. So like take a look. So yeah, for me, basically, to sum up all of the things that I just said, it's important to be true to yourself. Like, what do you want to do? If for you, this is your dream job, you really want to start a YouTube channel, don't even like think about what other people might be thinking about, because it doesn't matter. Like everyone lives their own lives. At the end of the day, maybe someone is going to laugh at you, but like you're probably never going to talk to them, and doesn't even matter at all. Like it's your life. And obviously, if you're serious about YouTube, you have to be serious. Like you have to put in the work, do research, make videos, publish, edit, analyze what went right, what went wrong, how can you improve. Recently, I heard this one YouTuber say that she tries to make sure her next video is a little better, just like 1% better. Maybe it's something that she changed in scripting her videos. Maybe it's like a new little like editing thing that she used, like something very small. It doesn't have to be like a completely new editing style. No, just like learning a new skill, not a skill, like a new little editing feature, let's say, or changing the way you make thumbnails, for example, or maybe watching a YouTube video on how to make better thumbnails so that you can change one little thing in your upcoming video, for example. So, like, always making sure that you're analyzing, improving, learning. Yeah.
Yeah, just at least a little bit better than last time.
Yeah, like 1%. Because sometimes it might lead to people feeling like if their video is not significantly better than the last, they did something wrong, they're a failure, they can't improve. No, just little things. Like for me, what I consider for me 1% is like if I watched a video connected to YouTube, growing on YouTube, improving on YouTube, it's already 1%. Like I didn't even implement anything, but I know that now I have this knowledge that I didn't have before watching this video. So for me, it's already this 1%.
Cool, yeah. And so for now you have these 2 channels, and is there anything special coming up in the future, like new type of content, or I don't know, do you have any special for the future?
No, not really. I also had kind of like had or have a podcast, but I stopped making episodes there because I realized that it was actually not something that I wanted to do. I don't know why I started it in the first place. So now I stopped recording episodes for it. But I think for now, that's what I want to do. Like, I really want to figure out the strategy for my channel where I have 40,000 subscribers, because I'm trying to build a completely different audience there. And it's a different journey because one of the biggest things that helped me gain subscribers so fast on my language channel is making short videos. And but the problem with making short videos is that those subscribers, they don't translate to your long form video views.
Right.
And that's what a lot of content creators have been experiencing. So that's why I stopped making short videos on my language channel too. Short videos are still extremely great and good for you if you want to grow fast. They're the only way to grow your Instagram or TikTok, for example, because these platforms, they are built on growing a new audience this way. But at one point, for example, I realized that I was just growing my audience and not connecting with it. So that's also another thing that I changed on my Instagram strategy, for example. I view Reels as an opportunity to connect to new people, but I have to also create content to connect to the people who decided to follow me. So this content is different. It's different from Reels. Maybe people who are my long-term subscribers like my Reels too, but something more personal, more unique, I think might be better. So yeah, that's why on this channel, Veronika Mark, with 40,000 subscribers, I don't make any Reels at all. Well, not Reels, short, what are they called? YouTube Shorts. I don't make any YouTube Shorts just because that's not the audience I want to build. I want to have people who watch my long videos. I'm not interested in, people watching my shorts on YouTube. That's not my type of audience. That's not my content. So that's why I need to figure out the long videos that I want to make.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting because I have not focused on shorts at all. I think I have like maybe one, but yeah, I was sort of thinking about should I make shorts or should I just continue like the just normal videos? But then yeah, I thought like personally I don't watch a ton of shorts, and when I do it's like pretty instantaneous, consumption. You don't really connect on
Mm-hmm.
a deeper level with the actual person. So, but I suppose there is some value, anyways, in shorts.
Yeah, no, but I think personally for me, yeah, those like deep connection with your audience really happens on YouTube through long videos. Like this platform is extremely rewarding in terms of the audience you can build, your subscribers, the impact your videos can have. And I don't think I think it's a way harder to do so with short videos. However, it's easier to grow with short videos, and it's harder. Sometimes it's harder to grow with long videos. Like you really need to think about what you're doing, because sometimes something didn't work, and there are so many people who made like a few short videos and they exploded, and then they started making long videos and no one watches them because yeah, unfortunately, that's that's something that a lot of creators on YouTube have been experiencing.
Yeah, different game. Um, but in terms of, I think a lot of YouTubers like myself, one of the certainly the limiting factor is just time, right? Because I want to make more like higher quality videos, not necessarily posting more often, but higher quality stuff where I can actually really research and put some of my own personality in the videos, which is sometimes a little bit hard when everything is just scripted. But time is a limiting factor. So personally, at my sort of level, what I'm looking to do is actually just be able to spend more time doing this, but at the same time, just because I have a full-time job as a programmer on the side, it's pretty hard. So the only way I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
make this happen is if the YouTube channel actually makes a decent amount of money where I can make a living from it. So in terms of
Mm-hmm.
specific, tactics, what would you recommend? I think I talked with Lamont yesterday. There are multiple sort of ways of making money on YouTube. Like you have AdSense, obviously, which is not huge, I think, for a lot of people. You have affiliate marketing, sponsorships, obviously, and then recently there's the just YouTube memberships, like subscribers actually paying some small amount of money to be a paid subscriber. So, what would you say is the most sort of promising avenue? Is this just a mix, or what should people focus on?
I think it's very important to focus on building your personal brand. Like what makes you unique, and you just said about time, like in trying to like make a very like professional research video. And unfortunately, something that I also realized a while ago is that on YouTube usually people don't want to watch something too complicated. And like if you see like videos that get a lot of views, like millions of views in terms of like language learning, for example, it's something very simple. Like a person is just, sharing their advice. Usually it's like a short video. It's not a lecture. Like if you want to give people like immense value and like very complicated content, it has to be a course, like a course that people pay for, and you're going to feel more rewarded because you spend so much time and energy creating this product, researching all this like complicated topics. I think YouTube is basically taking, for me, and I think for a lot of content creators, it's the same thing. It's taking something complicated and making it much, much simpler and shorter, simpler, and that's how videos get views, and then later, obviously, that's how you grow your AdSense. That's how companies start coming in and you get sponsorships, and that's how you build a personal brand and you start creating your own products. And if you want to talk about something more complicated, you can start, creating a course. There are a lot of YouTubers who have their own courses, and there, because I have purchased a few courses myself, and yes, there the information is If it's a good course, of course, because sometimes the courses are not that great. But if it's a good course, the information is there, there is pretty advanced, like very well researched. You have to take notes and you feel like you're learning. Because on YouTube, most people, they're just there to, watch something when they're cooking or watch something when they're taking a shower or relaxing before going to bed. I don't think most people, I'm sure there are some people who do that, but most people who watch YouTube, they don't like sit in front of their computer and like take notes about
Yeah,
everything you
yeah.
just said. It's more like, oh yeah, cool tip, thank you. And they probably remember only like literally one thing you mentioned from that video. So, but I think it also makes it easier for creators as well. Instead of thinking like, oh my God, I have to make this like super complicated video, like research this topic super in depth, you can give something good, but like a little bit smaller. Like good information, good quality, but like not make this video like 30 minutes long and go into all the little details. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good advice. I tend to, especially recently, just overthink the whole process and just to, I don't know, I guess it's my thing. But in terms of like the bane of my existence on YouTube is just editing. I mean, it's just something that I don't like doing essentially. Personally, because when I watch YouTube, I don't really watch YouTube. I listen to YouTube, I suppose like a lot of
See?
people. And so I'm always
Yep.
asking myself like so I'm sure you've seen like Mr. Beast, a lot of interviews, people asking him like how do you make great videos? And he's all about optimization. And obviously, the video editing thing is part of the process, just pretty fast paced and simplifying stuff. But for me, like, I spend so many hours just editing videos, but in my heart of hearts, I'm thinking to myself, if I, like, for me, it doesn't really matter, right? If a video is not like super well edited, so I don't know. I'd be curious to have your opinion on. First of all, do you still edit your own videos? How much time should you be spending on video editing?
Well, I don't edit my YouTube videos anymore, but for like 3 years I did. And so I think first of all, you mentioned Mr. Beast. I love Mr. Beast. I watch like all of his videos because he's extremely smart. Like what you mentioned about like optimization and stuff like that. But when I watch his videos, I don't like really listen much for his advice because my content, our content is different. Like we're not making crazy videos where we're like blowing up things and giving away people a lot of money. It's completely different content. And I don't think like in every single niche people should try to be like Mr. Beast. I mean, this way videos are going to be exactly the same and exact like absolutely boring because there are so many videos that are titled something like my spring diaries, and it's like a girl recording a very slow paced relaxing vlog, and it has like 1 million views. So like it's completely different from what Mr. Beast was talking about because his video is so fast paced. Everything is happening all the time. What are we going to do now? So I think it's just very important to understand like what are people watching in your niche? Like how are those videos edited? Especially like the videos that generate a lot of views. Why do you think people clicked on those videos? Was it the title, the thumbnail, something else? Like I think that is important to remember. Yeah, I watch a lot of creators whose editing is very, very simple. Like they do, of course, edit their videos, but it's simple. Like everything they rely on is mostly like what they say and how they say it. So when I was editing my videos, of course, it was like simple. And I think even right now it's simple. The way my videos are edited right now, it's very like clean. It's simple. It's not like a lot of things like happening all the time. It's just a little bit, I would say, like simple things elevated. Like it's the same simple text, but it's just with instead of just like tapping everything on my computer and, not using any movement. For example, now there's like more movement, more like interesting transitions and stuff like that. So it's still clean and simple, a little elevated. I would say simple but elevated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Matt Diavella type of thing. But
Well, yeah, his videos are actually edited very simply. Like he
yeah,
barely uses anything because his videos are all about a story. It's basically his whole editing comes down to framing his shots, the shots and the story. Like the story he's sharing with us, the shots, he doesn't use like crazy transition like After Effects, and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure it's like all very simple, chill, laid back, but still, like people love this content. So I don't think, like editing your video in a crazy way is the most important thing.
sure, yeah. And I think like the type of videos that you make, or Matt Diavella, is like slower, a little bit more simpler, I would say. It just conveys your personality a little bit better, as opposed to like Mr. Beast. It's more like, I guess it's a different thing. It's like if I were to
Yeah,
make,
he has different
yeah,
audience too.
exactly. If I, like in the language learning niche, I don't know how this would apply. Like I would make a video, I learned 100 languages in 2 days or something like that. It just would not work, I guess. I mean, it would definitely not work.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to like challenge myself once on like learning a language in 24 hours. This video, I would say, performed fairly well, but I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I did not have a good time. At the end of the day, I was just like, oh my God, like, what am I doing here? I'm just like making like videos for views, pretty
Yeah.
much. Like that's how I was feeling. Like I was just making, and not even like for views, but for the promise. That's the thing. It's never guaranteed.
Yeah.
You might think you're going to make this amazing freaking video, it's going to get a million views, but it's just a promise. You promise yourself that it's going to make a million, that's going to generate a million views. But what if it doesn't? What if it flops? And you just like spend all of this energy and there is nothing left and you feel horrible. So I think that's also a very important thing to remember.
Yeah. And still on the topic of video editing, so you mentioned that you're not editing your videos anymore. So do you have like one person in particular, or I'm just curious as to like how do you find good video editors?
So for me, a lot of people that I work with in the past and am working with right now, they all reached out to me.
Okay.
So the video editor I'm working with right now, my current video editor, because in the past I worked with a different guy who was editing my videos, and I found him. It was just we stopped working together because of the schedules and like time things. So, but the video editor I'm working with right now, he reached out to me because a lot of people reach out to me all the time, and I was like, yeah, sure, just like send me your work. Like, how do you edit? Like, let me take a look. He sent me a few of his example videos. I was like, yeah, I like it. So can you edit my video? And like my first video, and let's see how it goes. And he edited my video. He listened to everything I asked him to do. I really liked it. I was very impressed. And I was like, yeah, that's great. So yeah, that's how it happened. That's how I started working with a person who is creating my new website right now. He reached out to me too, and I really like when people reach out to me and they already tell me what they can do for me, instead of just like what can I do for them, like hire me or something like that. Because like what really differentiated those two people was in their emails, they were like, oh, here's me. It was short but good, like well written. It was like, here's what I do, here's a link to my portfolio, and I think I can improve your content this way, like specific things I can help you. The same thing with a person who's working on my website. He was like, yeah, your website is great, but I think we can make it better. This way we can make it better. This way it's going to be more interesting. This way it's going to be more professional. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Because there are so many things I don't know. And I love working with people who are smarter than me in specific fields. Like they know more things about specific topics. So, yeah.
Great. This was really insightful. I just want to ask you a last question, which is there anything that we did not talk about that you want to mention or talk about?
I would say that if any of you guys listening to us right now, watching us right now, if you wanted to start your YouTube channel, just go for it. But again, understand that it requires a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and you just have to be ready for it. Like analyzing things, and I think it's also important to understand why you want it. Like, why do you want to start a YouTube channel? Like a very personal reason deep down. If you're really thinking about it, like, what's the reason? And maybe like some people, when they start thinking about this way, they realize that like, don't want to start a YouTube channel. Like I actually want to do something else. It was very simple like this for me when I was making vlogs. Because one day I decided to ask myself, like, why are you making vlogs? Like, do you actually want to make vlogs? Like, what's the deal here? What's the point of it? And then I realized that I didn't. And yeah, there were a lot of reasons why I was making vlogs, but nothing was very satisfying. So
Great. Yeah, great. This was very insightful. Thank you so much, Veronika. Obviously, I'm going to put all the links to your channels and your website in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube. And thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you so much, for reaching out and having this interview conversation video with me. Yeah, I'm very grateful. It was a fun conversation. Thank you.
Well, that's it for today. I hope that you liked this conversation. Who do you want me to interview next? And also make sure to subscribe if you're on YouTube to get the next episodes or wherever you're listening to this conversation. See you next time.